What would you do if someone was secretly making your family sick just to force you out of your home? I was watering Mom's favorite roses when Karen Thompson's shiny black SUV pulled into our driveway, kicking up gravel. My stomach sank. Every time the HOA president showed up, trouble followed. Alex, Karen called through her barely rolled down window. Those garden gnomes have to go. They break Section 8, Paragraph 12 of our community rules. I put down the watering can. They've been here for 7 years, Karen, since Dad died. Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. Rules are rules. I've been lenient, but the board is insisting. Remove them by Friday, or it's a 200 fine per gnome. As her SUV backed out, I counted the gnomes. 8 in total, each one a happy memory of Dad. That would be 200 fine per gnome. As her SUV backed out, I counted the gnomes. 8 in total, each one a happy memory of Dad. That would be 1,600 in fines if I ignored her. Money we didn't have, especially with Mom's medical bills piling up. Mom appeared at the screen door, leaning on the frame for support. Was that Karen again? She asked. Just HOA stuff, I lied, not wanting to upset her. Mom had been having dizzy spells lately, and the doctors couldn't figure out why. That night, I carefully wrapped each gnome in newspaper and stored them in the garage. Dad had bought one every year on Mom's birthday. Now they sat in the dark, like pieces of our happiness being slowly taken away. By Friday, Karen was walking the neighborhood with her clipboard, checking for violations. She stopped at our garden, nodding in fake approval before writing something down. On Monday, we got another notice. Our mailbox was the wrong shade of blue. We had to repaint it the approved midnight azure from the HOA color list. It's just a mailbox, I told Mom as I repainted it. Not worth fighting over. But the next week, it was our bird feeder, then our wind chimes, then the height of our hedges. Every time Karen visited, Mom seemed worse, more tired, more confused. I started to wonder if the stress was making her condition worse. One evening, while taking out the trash, I noticed Doug Thompson, Karen's husband, standing near our water meter at the edge of our property. When he saw me, he quickly walked away, pretending to check his phone. "Everything okay?" I called out. "Just walking the dog," he replied, though I didn't see a dog anywhere. I mentioned it to our neighbor, Elaine Rodriguez, who lived across the street. "The Thompsons don't even have a dog," she whispered, leaning over her fence. "And between you and me, Karen's been targeting anyone who voted against her in the last HOA election. Your mom was the only one who spoke up about Karen's plan to double our dues," he warned, but I could run a quick screen for common contaminants today. While waiting, I visited Mom in the hospital. Her skin was pale against the white sheets, dark circles under her eyes like bruises. "The neighbors keep asking about you," I told her, trying to sound cheerful. "Elaine brought soup, and even Mr. Jenkins from 2 doors down sent flowers." Mom tried to smile. "And Karen? Has she sent another violation notice while I've been away?" I squeezed her hand. "Don't worry about Karen right now." My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. "Call me ASAP." I stepped into the hallway, my heart pounding. "What did you find?" I asked. "Ethylene glycol," Dave said grimly. "Antifreeze. Low concentration, but definitely present. I've never seen it in residential water before. You should call the police immediately." I drove straight to the police station with my water sample and video footage. Officer Martinez took my report but looked skeptical. "The video shows someone at your water meter, but we can't clearly see what substance is being poured," she explained. "And trace amounts of chemicals can get into water systems in many ways." "My mother is in the hospital with organ damage," I protested. "The timing matches perfectly with when the Thompsons were at our meter." "We'll investigate," she promised. But without definitive proof, I left feeling frustrated. Back home, another HOA notice awaited. Unauthorized security equipment must be removed within 24 hours. They knew about my camera, which meant they'd been watching our house. The next day, I installed 3 more cameras, hidden ones this time. If the Thompsons returned, I'd catch them from multiple angles. At the hospital, Dr. Patel confirmed the findings from my water test. Ethylene glycol poisoning matches your mother's symptoms. We've adjusted her treatment, but the damage to her kidneys may be permanent. Permanent. The word echoed in my head as I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. A voice message waited on my phone from Malcolm Reed, the HOA treasurer. Alex, we need to discuss these allegations you're making. The board takes homeowner disputes very seriously, but accusing fellow residents of criminal activity without proof has consequences. I deleted the message and called my college roommate Jamie, now an environmental lawyer. They're poisoning her slowly, I explained, just enough to make her sick, not enough to kill her quickly. They want us gone because Mom opposed their fee increases. This is serious, Alex, Jamie said. If the police won't help, we need to get creative. Tell me everything about Pinecrest Gardens infrastructure. For the next 3 hours, we dug into property records, utility agreements, and the HOA charter. Jamie found something interesting. Unlike most neighborhoods where water is provided by the city, Pinecrest Gardens water came from private wells managed. Alex, think carefully. This is a big move. The next morning, as I was leaving to visit Mom, Karen's SUV blocked my driveway. She rolled down her window, smiling like we were old friends. Alex, the board is concerned about your mother. If her health makes maintaining property standards difficult, perhaps it's time to consider assisted living. I know a lovely facility in the next county. My hands clenched into fists. My mother isn't going anywhere. Well, Karen, I said, the neighborhood has certain expectations. We've been patient, but the violations are piling up. The fines now total over $3,000. I never received notices for most of these supposed violations, I replied. Karen waved a manicured hand. They were properly delivered according to HOA protocol. If you can't pay, we'll have to place a lien on your property. That's when I knew for certain this wasn't random harassment. They were systematically trying to force us out. I'll handle the fines, I said calmly. And Karen? I'd be careful about drinking the water around here. I hear it's not safe. Her smile faltered for just a second before she drove away. At the hospital, Mom had visitors, Elaine and 3 other neighbors who had also butted heads with Karen in the past. We don't believe the HOA stories about you and your mom, Elaine said. Karen's been getting worse since she became president, more power hungry. Has anyone else gotten sick? I asked carefully. They exchanged glances. Not sick exactly, said Mr. Jenkins, but my dog died suddenly last month after Karen complained about his barking. The vet couldn't explain it. I showed them the water test results, but not the video. I didn't want to put them at risk. We're with you, Elaine promised. Just tell us how we can help. That evening, I called Jamie's contact at a bankruptcy law firm. After explaining what I wanted to do, I emptied my savings account and applied for a home equity loan. The next day, Dr. Patel pulled me aside during my visit with Mom. Her kidneys are functioning at 40% capacity. She's going to need dialysis, possibly a transplant eventually. I sat in the hospital parking lot, staring at nothing, rage building inside me. My phone rang. It was Jamie. The initial offer has been submitted, she said. Now we wait. 2 days later, Malcolm Reed left another voicemail. Alex, we've heard disturbing rumors about your intentions regarding Clearwater LLC. The board would like to meet with you immediately to discuss water access concerns. They were worried. Good. I deleted the message and checked my hidden cameras. No sign of the Thompsons near our water meter, but Doug's car had driven by our house 6 times yesterday. The bank approved my loan. Jamie's contact called with news. Our offer for Clearwater LLC had been accepted. In 1 week, I would own the company that controlled the HOA's water supply. That night, as I sat by Mom's hospital bed watching her sleep, I made a promise. Karen Thompson thought she could poison my mother and get away with it. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Blood pumped in my ears as I stared at the lab results in my hands. My hands shook with rage. The water sample from our house contained ethylene glycol, antifreeze. Not enough to kill Mom quickly, but just enough to make her slowly sicker each day. I slammed my fist on the table, rattling my coffee cup. Who does this to an innocent woman in her 60s? I called Detective Rivera immediately. I have proof. The lab found antifreeze in our water, and I have video of Doug Thompson tampering with our water line. The detective sighed. I understand you're upset, but the video doesn't clearly show what substance he's adding, if anything. And finding chemicals in your water doesn't prove who put them there. Are you serious? They're poisoning my mother. My voice cracked. I need direct evidence linking the Thompsons to the chemical. Keep the video safe, and we'll continue investigating. That afternoon, a notice appeared on our door. Bright red paper. That night, Mom couldn't keep dinner down. Her skin looked yellow in the bathroom light as she hunched over the toilet. I think we should go to the hospital, I said, helping her to the car. The emergency room doctor ran tests but found nothing clear. Could be a virus, he suggested, or maybe something environmental. Any changes at home recently? On the drive back, Mom dozed in the passenger seat. I took the long way, passing the Thompsons' house. Their lights were on, and I could see Karen and Doug in their kitchen window, laughing over glasses of wine. The next morning, Mom couldn't get out of bed. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't hold her coffee mug. I called Dr. Patel, who agreed to see her right away. While waiting for the appointment, I walked our property line, looking for anything unusual near the water meter where I'd seen Doug. The ground looked disturbed. Kneeling down, I noticed small drops of blue liquid on some nearby rocks. My phone rang. It was the hospital. Mom had collapsed in Dr. Patel's office. We're running toxicology screens, the nurse explained. The doctor thinks it might be some kind of poisoning. Poisoning. My mind flashed to Doug by our water meter. The blue drops. The timing of Mom's symptoms getting worse after Karen's visits. I rushed to the hardware store and bought a security camera. That night I installed it in our oak tree, pointing directly at the water meter. If Doug came back, I'd have proof. Mom stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Her tests showed high levels of strange chemicals, but nothing the doctors could immediately identify. Whatever it is, it's putting stress on her liver and kidneys, Dr. Patel explained. Has she been exposed to any chemicals? Pesticides? New cleaning products? When we got home, a notice was taped to our door. The HOA was fining us for unauthorized landscaping because I hadn't mowed the lawn while taking care of Mom in the hospital. As I crumpled the notice, my security camera alert pinged. Someone was at our water meter right now. I raced outside just in time to see Doug Thompson hurrying away. Karen waited in their SUV at the curb, engine running. "What are you doing to our water?" I shouted. Karen rolled down her window. "Alex, you're clearly under stress. Maybe your mother's illness is affecting your judgment." They drove off before I could respond. My hands shook as I checked the security footage. There it was. Doug pouring something from a small bottle into our water line, with Karen keeping watch. Both of them were smiling. I grabbed a water sample from our kitchen tap and the footage from my camera. These people were poisoning my mother, and I was going to make them pay. The water testing lab looked unimpressive from the outside, just another storefront in a strip mall. But the technician, Dave, took my sample seriously when I explained my concerns. "It'll take 48 hours for complete results," he said. The notice on my door was bold and glaring. Violation. Unauthorized surveillance equipment must be removed within 48 hours or face a $500 fine. I laughed bitterly. Of course, Karen would try to get rid of the cameras that caught her husband. I took photos of the notice and called Mom's doctor to update him on the lab results. "We'll adjust her treatment now that we know what we're dealing with," he said. "But Alex, she needs to stop being exposed immediately." "I'm trying everything," I whispered, watching Mom sleep in her hospital bed, tubes running from her arms. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room until 3 a.m., searching online for anything about HOA water systems. A forgotten memory surfaced. Dad once mentioned something about our neighborhood's unusual water setup. I dug through his old files in the basement until sunrise, sneezing from the dust. In a folder labeled Home Purchase, I found it. Documents showing Pinecrest Gardens water didn't come directly from the city, but through a private company called Clearwater LLC. Curious, I researched Clearwater LLC all day instead of going to work. Their website looked ancient, last updated in 2018. Public records showed they owned water rights to 3 neighborhoods, including ours. More importantly, a recent Business Journal article mentioned they were facing bankruptcy after their founder died. My college roommate, Jason, now worked as a water rights attorney in Colorado. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but I dialed his number anyway. "Jason, it's Alex. I have a weird legal question." After explaining everything, Jason went quiet for so long, I thought we disconnected. "So, you're saying this company that controls your HOA's water is going bankrupt?" he finally asked. "That's what it looks like." "And you want to know if you could buy it?" My heart raced at hearing my half-formed idea spoken aloud. Could I, theoretically? Yes, water rights are property that can be bought and sold. But Alex, what exactly are you planning? I glanced at Mom's empty chair, where she should be doing her crossword puzzles. Justice, I said. Jason sighed. This could cost everything you have. What's money compared to Mom's life? I replied, my mind already racing with possibilities. That evening, I visited Mom in the hospital. Her skin looked yellow under the harsh lights. Any news on what's making me sick? She asked weakly. I squeezed her hand, debating how much to tell her. Before I could answer, Karen Thompson walked in, carrying a bouquet of lies. Oh, I didn't know you'd be here, she said with fake surprise. I've been so worried about your mother. Our eyes locked. Did she know that I knew? Was this visit a way to see how much damage she'd done? How thoughtful of you, I said coldly. Mom needs rest now. You should go. Karen placed the flowers down and touched Mom's foot through the blanket. We're all praying for you, Margaret. The neighborhood just isn't the same without your smile. After she left, Mom looked confused. That was strange. She's never brought me flowers before. I gripped the bed rail so hard my knuckles turned white. Mom, I need to ask you something important. Do you trust me? With my life, she answered without hesitation. I might need to do something drastic to make you safe. It might make some people angry. She smiled weakly. Your father always said sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. Her eyes drifted shut from the medication. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed with an email from Jason, with contact information for Clearwater LLC's bankruptcy attorney. The subject line read, Are you sure about this? I wasn't sure about anything except that Karen and her cronies deserved what was coming. How far would they go to protect their neighborhood image? You want to buy Clearwater LLC? The bankruptcy attorney stared at me like I had two heads. The company that owns 3 failing water systems, including Pinecrest Gardens? I nodded firmly, heart racing but voice steady. That's exactly what I want. But why? The infrastructure needs upgrades. They're behind on their permits. And I have my reasons, I interrupted. How much? He named a price that made my mouth go dry. It would take every penny of my savings, my 401k with the penalty, and I'd still need a loan. But Mom's pale face flashed in my mind, and I knew I had no choice. I'll need 2 weeks to get the money together, I said, walking to